What if the comfort you trusted most, the sweet little square you let melt on your tongue after a long day, wasn't comfort at all, but a slow leak of poison dressed up in foil? For decades, chocolate has been sold as America's harmless indulgence. The box of Godiva your boss gave you at Christmas, the dark chocolate squares you tell yourself are good for your heart. It's tradition, nostalgia, even medicine if you believe the ads. But Europe doesn't buy it. They banned some of America's most popular chocolate brands after finding dangerous levels of lead and cadmium, metals linked to lower IQ in kids, brittle bones, and kidneys that quit before you do. Here at home, the same brands sit in shiny wrappers, stacked in checkout aisles, handed to children like party favors. Peel back the shiny foil and you don't just find chocolate, you find blood on the supply chain, forests leveled, kids worked to the bone, and a business model that treats human suffering like just another cost of doing business. So here's the real question. How much of your life are you willing to trade for a bite of sweetness? And if Europe already decided these bars were too toxic for their kids, why are we still feeding them to ours? This is the Downturn Report, and today we're tearing the wrapper off 6 American chocolate brands banned overseas for heavy metals, but still living rent-free in your pantry. Number 1. Hershey's. You don't even pause when you toss a Hershey's bar onto the checkout belt, do you? It slips in next to the eggs and bread like it belongs there. It's the candy that showed up in Easter baskets, school fundraisers, and quiet nights on the porch. Just seeing that brown wrapper feels like muscle memory, like reaching for comfort itself. But what if that sense of comfort came with a catch? What if inside that familiar wrapper wasn't just chocolate, but traces of the same heavy metals scientists warn can chip away at your brain, your bones, your future? Because in 2025, Hershey's isn't just the taste of childhood or the flavor of nostalgia. It's the brand appearing in headlines for lead and cadmium, toxins that have no business being anywhere near your kid's lunchbox. Consumer Reports, in studies as recent as 2023, flagged Hershey's dark chocolate bars for containing lead and cadmium at levels that can exceed California's Proposition 65 daily safety limits. Lead, the same toxin banned from paint, banned from gasoline, because even microscopic amounts can stunt a child's brain development. Cadmium, a heavy metal tied to kidney disease and brittle bones, the kind of damage that doesn't show up until you're older, and suddenly your body betrays you. These aren't trace contaminants you can brush off. These are poisons that build up, dose after dose, square after square, year after year. Think about that for a second. The chocolate you hand to your child as a reward for a good report card, the kisses you pour into a candy dish at Christmas, they may be carrying the very toxins scientists spend decades trying to get out of our water, our air, our soil. And yet here they are, sealed into a shiny wrapper and marketed as love. And Hershey's knows exactly what it's doing. The company built its empire on trust, on a narrative that chocolate equals happiness, comfort, even patriotism. Milton Hershey, the founder, positioned his town and his factory as proof that capitalism could be benevolent, that chocolate was a symbol of American goodness. But fast forward to today, and that myth looks rotten, because the same brand that made you feel safe is the one quietly betting you'll never ask how safe it really is. This isn't just about chemistry or lab results, it's about betrayal. Millions of Americans grew up with Hershey's as part of their family rituals. Ice cream sundaes with Hershey's syrup, little foil-wrapped kisses tucked into lunchboxes with notes from mom. To hear that the same brand has been flagged for heavy metals feels like finding out a trusted family member has been poisoning the coffee pot. The sweetness of nostalgia curdles into bitterness once you realize how easily your trust has been cashed in. And the damage isn't only personal, it's generational. Lead exposure doesn't just hurt the child eating the chocolate today, it shapes the adult they'll become, the IQ points never regained, the opportunities quietly stolen. Cadmium doesn't just wear down kidneys in the short term, it means higher medical bills, shorter lifespans, families carrying the burden of illnesses they never saw coming. What's the cost of a lifetime of Hershey's? Far more than the $1.29 you paid at the checkout line. Meanwhile, Europe looks at the same numbers and takes action. They move to restrict or ban products that put citizens at risk. But in America, regulators drag their feet, industry lobbyists whisper in ears, and the bars keep selling. Why? Because Hershey's isn't just a chocolate brand. It's an American institution, too big, too familiar, too embedded in our culture to challenge. And that's exactly what they count on, that you'll keep unwrapping, keep chewing, and never ask what's inside. Ironically, Hershey's doesn't just profit from chocolate, it profits from image. Its commercials still show wide-eyed kids biting into s'mores, happy families passing around bowls of candy. But they never show the lab reports, the lawsuits, the communities bearing the hidden costs. Behind the smile of the Hershey's kiss is the kiss of betrayal. Now ask yourself, how many times have you handed a Hershey's bar to your kid without thinking twice? How many school fundraisers, birthday parties, trick-or-treat bags have been filled with these all-American sweets? And how many invisible doses of lead and cadmium have slipped into your family's bodies as a result? This isn't about guilt-tripping someone for enjoying chocolate. It's about waking up to the reality that comfort has been weaponized against us, that nostalgia is being used as cover for negligence, that every bite you thought was harmless was also a reminder of how fragile our trust really is. So the next time you see that familiar brown wrapper, remember, it's not just a candy bar, it's a warning label wrapped in nostalgia. The question isn't whether Hershey's tastes good, it always has. The question is whether that sweetness is worth the silent cost your family may be paying for the rest of their lives. Number 2, Ghirardelli. Ghirardelli once felt like the kind of chocolate that came with a storybook backdrop. Cobblestone streets of San Francisco, a whiff of salt air by the bay, and that iconic sign flashing like a beacon of trust. You didn't just buy a square of chocolate, you bought a postcard of Americana, a moment of sophistication you could share without draining your wallet. A dish of Ghirardelli squares at a dinner party said, "We care enough to go a step above," while still feeling as familiar as a neighbor who always waves when you pass by. But 2025 cracked that postcard wide open. The Environmental Working Group released updated tests in February, and suddenly, the intense dark line didn't sound so elegant anymore. The 86% cacao squares clocked in at nearly 0.9 micrograms of cadmium per serving, brushing dangerously close to Europe's maximum thresholds and well past California's Proposition 65 exposure guidelines. Toxicologists didn't mince words. For seniors already juggling brittle bones and aging kidneys, this wasn't indulgence, it was erosion. March brought the lawyers. A class action suit out of Illinois accused Ghirardelli of hiding behind words like crafted with care, while neglecting to mention the cadmium riding shotgun in every bite. One customer told CBS Chicago, "I trusted Ghirardelli more than I trust my HOA. At least my HOA admits when they're robbing me." It was gallows humor, but the sting cut deep. Then April and the shine peeled back further. Bloomberg traced Ghirardelli's cocoa supply through parent company Lint and Springley to farms in West Africa tied to land grabs and deforestation. Satellite images showed protected forests in Ghana erased in less than 2 years, replaced by neat rows of cocoa trees. Local farmers said they were pushed off land their families had worked for generations, forced to watch bulldozers grind their history into cash crop dust. For a brand that drapes itself in words like heritage and tradition, the contrast was almost obscene. By May, the embarrassment went international. Germany halted imports of certain Ghirardelli dark bars after cadmium levels flunked updated EU standards. Videos of pallets being confiscated or destroyed in customs warehouses spread across TikTok, tagged with hashtag chocolate scandal and hashtag not me Ghirardelli. 4. American grandparents who tuck those gold foil squares into stockings or press them into small hands at Christmas. The shame wasn't abstract. It felt like betrayal at the candy dish. Step back and the picture is messier. Cocoa prices in early 2025 spiked to record highs, a perfect storm of climate pressure and global demand. Inside boardrooms, maybe executives told themselves they were just managing margins, borrowing consumer trust for one more quarter. Maybe they even believed the marketing spin, that a little exposure wasn't really that bad. But does calling it survival change the fact that trust was treated like pocket change, spent quickly, replaced never? The uncomfortable truth is there are other options. Smaller makers like Alter Eco and Who Kitchen have posted independent 2025 lab tests showing negligible heavy metals. Some families are rediscovering the basics. Fair trade cocoa powder, coconut oil, a few nuts, and you've got homemade bark with ingredients you can actually pronounce. It's not about giving up comfort. It's about knowing your comfort doesn't come laced with a toxic asterisk. But here's the question that hangs like a bitter aftertaste. Have we been too quick to assume that a familiar American brand equals safety? Did we trade vigilance for nostalgia, letting a logo soothe us into silence? When did a square of chocolate become heavy with corporate greed, environmental damage, and broken promises? And maybe the hardest truth of all, if Europe decided their kids deserve better, why are we still handing our own kids a square of poison wrapped in gold foil? Number 3, Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's feels almost like family to millions of Americans. Walk into any store, and you're greeted not by sterile aisles, but by Hawaiian shirts, hand-drawn chalkboard signs, and the promise that whatever you put in your cart is somehow better. Shoppers treat it like a club, not just a supermarket, but a lifestyle, where even the snacks feel guilt-free. If Whole Foods is a cathedral of health, Trader Joe's is the neighborhood church, approachable, affordable, and always preaching the gospel of wholesome. So when you grab one of their dark chocolate bars, 72%, 85%, maybe even 100% cacao, it feels like a conscious choice, not junk food, but a good-for-the-heart indulgence. You imagine antioxidants working their magic, the bitter richness balancing out the sins of a rushed lunch or skipped workout. Parents slip a piece into lunchboxes. Young professionals keep a bar in their desk drawer as a smarter pick-me-up than a candy bar. It's not just chocolate, it's virtue wrapped in foil. But 2025 made that virtue crack. Independent tests flagged Trader Joe's dark chocolate, especially those over 70% cacao, for elevated levels of cadmium and lead. The very bars marketed as cleaner, healthier, more natural alternatives were the ones carrying toxins strong enough to concern toxicologists. The irony stings. You didn't wander into some bargain bin candy aisle. You went to Trader Joe's, the store your friends brag about, the one your favorite food blogger praises, the place you trust to make the small stuff safe. And instead of antioxidants, you might be feeding your body microdoses of poison. That square of 72% cacao you told yourself was better than ice cream could be carrying the same metals Europe considers unsafe. That's not virtue, that's betrayal. And it cuts deeper because Trader Joe's doesn't just sell food, it sells identity. Customers wear their shopping bags like badges of honor. There are Facebook groups dedicated to favorite TJ finds. People line up for seasonal releases as if they were concert tickets. To discover that the very brand built on "trust us, we curate better" is peddling chocolate laced with lead feels like finding out the pastor's been stealing from the collection plate. It's not just disappointment, it's disillusionment. Imagine the ripple effect. The college student who switched to dark chocolate because she read it was good for her heart. The mom who buys TJ bars because she thinks it's a safer treat for her kids. The retiree who believes swapping milk chocolate for dark is a smart health move. All of them making what they thought were smarter, safer choices, only to find those choices loaded with invisible costs. It's not just about what's in the bar, it's about the trust that made you pick it up in the first place. And yet Trader Joe's hasn't pulled the products. They haven't posted warning signs. They haven't leaned into transparency the way their quirky image suggests they would. Instead, the bars sit there, right next to the dried mango and the organic trail mix, sold with the same friendly wink they've always had. You're left wondering if even Trader Joe's, the poster child for affordable wholesomeness, won't be honest about what's in their food. Who will? The truth is, we're not powerless. Families who want chocolate without the heavy metal cocktail can look to smaller craft brands, bars that publish lab tests, or even simple DIY bark made from cocoa powder and nuts. Cutting back, swapping out, or demanding clearer labeling can shift the market. Change doesn't start in corporate boardrooms. It starts in shopping carts. But here's the bitter aftertaste we can't shake. If the store we trusted most to do better is quietly selling poison as health food, what does that say about the system as a whole? How many more labels are just masks? And how many more times will we excuse it, telling ourselves we're shopping smarter when really we're just buying the same lies wrapped in new foil? Number 4, Godiva. For generations, Godiva has been shorthand for luxury. The gold boxes tied with ribbon, the glossy boutiques in airport terminals, the kind of chocolate you don't just buy, you present. Americans have slipped Godiva truffles into anniversary gifts, corporate thank yous, and holiday stockings as if they were the ultimate seal of class. Even the name itself conjures indulgence. European, refined, something far removed from the everyday Hershey bar. To hand someone Godiva was to say, "You matter. You're worth something special." But here's the secret most Americans never knew. The Godiva sold in US supermarkets is not the same Godiva you'd find in Europe. Independent lab tests and consumer reports have shown that versions manufactured for the American market contain higher levels of lead and cadmium than the same brand's bars overseas. The irony is brutal. The very chocolate marketed to Americans as luxury, as a cut above, was actually giving US consumers the cheaper, dirtier version, with toxins Europe wouldn't tolerate. Think about that for a second. You paid premium prices for Godiva. You handed it to your spouse on Valentine's Day, believing you were offering the best. But across the Atlantic, European shoppers buying the exact same box were getting a safer product. Americans weren't paying for luxury. They were paying for second-class chocolate dressed up in first-class packaging. This isn't just about heavy metals. It's about double standards. It's about a system where companies know they can get away with lower safety thresholds in the US because regulation is weaker, lawsuits take years, the packaging of the product is a shiny gold wrapper. We like to think American consumers get the best in the world. The truth is, too often, we get whatever corporations can get away with, and we're asked to smile while paying extra for it. And the betrayal hits hardest because Godiva isn't positioned as everyday candy. It's a symbol. The box you give your mother on Mother's Day, the truffles you keep in the office drawer for a hard day, the chocolate-dipped strawberries you splurge on once a year. It's supposed to carry meaning. But what happens when that meaning curdles into something darker? What does it say when the gift you meant as love comes laced with cadmium and lead? How do you explain that to the very people you thought you were caring for? The painful truth is, this isn't an accident. Multinationals know the rules are stricter abroad. They comply where they have to, in Europe, in Canada, but they cut corners where they can. And the US has become a dumping ground for good enough. Good enough for profits, good enough for Americans, not good enough for their own families overseas. For a country that prides itself on being the global leader, that should sting every patriotic nerve we've got. Picture it clearly. A grandmother in Paris unwraps a Godiva truffle with her coffee and gets a product cleared under EU standards. A grandmother in Chicago unwraps the same truffle and gets one with higher levels of neurotoxins. Same logo, same gold, foil point two, very different outcomes. One is protected by strong oversight, the other is left holding a time bomb disguised as dessert. Which one do you think your family deserves? And yet, despite lawsuits, despite investigative reports, Godiva hasn't leaned into transparency. Their website still drips with words like crafted with care, in Belgian tradition, while offering no real clarity about what's inside those boxes in the US market. It's not just misleading, it's insulting. It assumes we won't notice the sleight of hand. It bets we'll keep buying the gold packaging because we're addicted to the feeling of elegance it gives us, no matter what poison rides along. So here's the uncomfortable question that lingers long after the last truffle is gone. How long will Americans keep paying premium prices for products that don't even meet the standards other countries demand? At what point do we stop confusing shiny packaging with safety and nostalgia with quality? Because until we do, Godiva and brands like it will keep cashing in on the very trust they've already betrayed and selling Americans the poison Europe refused. Number 5, Dove has always sold itself as a whisper of luxury in the candy aisle. Silky, smooth, melt in your mouth. The kind of chocolate that feels a little more refined than a Snickers bar, but still affordable enough to sneak into your grocery run. Wrapped in shiny foil with uplifting messages inside, Dove promises that a bite isn't just chocolate, it's a small act of self-care. The marketing says it all. Treat yourself. But here's the bitter truth. That silky square may be carrying more than comfort. Independent consumer tests in 2025 flagged several Dove dark chocolate varieties for heavy metals like cadmium and lead, sometimes at levels exceeding safety thresholds for children. Let that sink in. The same brand Mars markets as a gentle indulgence, something you can slip into your lunch break without guilt, could be quietly dosing your body with toxins linked to kidney damage, brittle bones, and developmental risks in kids. The irony is sharp. Dove sells self-love, but what's self-love if it comes laced with poison? Millions of Americans unwrap those shiny squares after work, after dinner, or as a stolen moment of peace in a hectic day. Moms slip them into gift baskets. Co-workers keep bowls of them on office desks. These aren't rare indulgences. They're woven into everyday life. And yet, every treat yourself might be chipping away at your health without you ever knowing it. And let's not forget, Dove isn't a small boutique brand. It's owned by Mars Incorporated, one of the biggest candy companies on the planet. With that scale comes power, resources, and yes, responsibility. If Europe can regulate heavy metals and chocolate more tightly, why can't Mars ensure its Dove bars meet the same standards everywhere? Why should Americans be left with the cheaper version of luxury, one that hides behind foil and taglines while gambling with public health? This betrayal cuts especially deep because Dove markets itself to women, to parents, to people looking for a moment of softness in their day. But what kind of softness is it really when the metals inside could hit hardest on the very people most vulnerable? Kids, seniors, those already managing health issues. It turns the brand's cozy image into something cruel: comfort on the outside, corrosion on the inside. The solution doesn't have to be complicated. Families can shift towards smaller brands that publish independent lab results, fair trade makers who are transparent about safety, or even simple homemade alternatives. But here's the question that lingers like a bitter aftertaste. If Mars can make billions selling silky smooth chocolate, why can't they make it safe? And how long will Americans keep treating themselves to a product that's treating their health like collateral damage? Number 6. Theo Chocolate, based out of Seattle. It branded itself as the antidote to corporate candy: organic, fair trade, small batch, made with love and transparency. Walk into their factory store and you're greeted with the aroma of roasting cacao, guided tours that talk about ethics and sustainability, and packaging that feels like a nod to nature itself. For many Americans, Theo wasn't just chocolate, it was guilt-free chocolate, a way to indulge and still feel like you were doing the right thing. But even halos can crack. In 2025, Consumer Reports flagged several of Theo's dark chocolate bars for elevated cadmium content, the same heavy metal tied to kidney damage and bone weakness. That's right, the very brand built on organic, sustainable, and better for you wasn't immune to the same contamination haunting mass-market giants. It wasn't supposed to be Theo, and that's what makes it sting. Because people don't buy Theo the way they buy Hershey's. They buy it as a statement. Parents pick it up to show their kids that ethical choices matter. Health-conscious consumers reach for it because it feels safer, cleaner, more responsible. Coffee shops stock it to align with their local artisan values. And now, those same bars come with warnings about cadmium levels that could accumulate over time. The betrayal isn't just in the product, it's in the principle. The irony here is brutal. If even the small batch, fair trade, eco-conscious chocolate makers can't escape the shadow of heavy metals, where does that leave the rest of us? Theo was supposed to be proof that you could vote with your dollar, that by supporting the right brands, you could buy both flavor and conscience. But the lab results tell another story. No matter how pretty the label or how noble the mission statement, toxins don't care about marketing. And this isn't just about science, it's about trust. Americans trusted Theo more than Mars, Hershey, or Nestle precisely because it wasn't them. To see it flagged alongside the very corporations it was supposed to stand against feels like learning your town's beloved co-op grocery store was caught watering down the milk. It cuts closer to the bone because it chips away at the last safe space we thought we had. That doesn't mean all hope is lost. Independent labs can still guide families towards safer options, and some smaller craft brands are publishing full transparency reports. Consumers can push for stricter testing, even from the good guys, and treat glossy ethical marketing as a starting point, not a guarantee. But here's the hard question. If even the brands built on purity and principle are handing us chocolate laced with cadmium, how much faith can we really put in any wrapper, any label, any promise? Maybe chocolate was never supposed to feel this heavy. It was the treat slipped into lunch boxes, the stocking stuffer at Christmas, the late-night comfort after a bad day. But in 2025, every wrapper carries a shadow. Warnings of lead and cadmium, whispers of child labor, forests traded for profit margins. What once felt like innocence now feels like a wager we never agreed to place. And here's the part we can't dodge. These brands thrive because we let them. With every dollar, every shrug, every moment of silence, we sign off on the system. Are we really okay handing our kids candy laced with metals Europe has already banned? Are we content to call it tradition while the cost is measured in health, in dignity, in futures cut short? Maybe this was never just about chocolate at all. Maybe it's about what kind of world we're building every time we choose convenience over conscience. If this hits home, drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you felt that sting of betrayal from a brand you once trusted? What do you think has to change first? The companies or us? Subscribe and stay with us, because the only way we stop swallowing these lies is by facing them together, one truth at a time.
Thanks a lot for sticking with us to the very end. If you found this video useful, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe so you won't miss any daily uploads. And now, go ahead and explore some of our top recommended videos popping up on your screen. Goodbye, and see you in the next one.